Welcome to the Nautical Institute's webinar on risk in shipping. I'm David Patraiko, the director with the Nautical Institute here in London, and I'm joined by Captain Rahul Khanna, who's a member of the Nautical Institute and is in New York City at the moment. So welcome, Rahul.
Thank you very much.
Rahul, it's a crazy world out there. You're with Allianz Insurance. It's your job to understand the risk, to learn from the past, to speculate on the future. And you're going to be talking about this wonderful report that Allianz does every year on the safety and shipping review. We've got all sorts of crazy stuff going on in the world. I'll let you go through your report, but we got geopolitics, climate change, decarbonization. We've got impact on repairs, spare parts, steel, labor. We've got GNSS denial. We've got fires. There's so many things going on. And obviously, you and the Allianz team have studied this to produce your report, because risk is your business, or safety is your business, maybe. And to do that, you have to understand risk. We at the Nautical Institute are a international professional body, and our role is to help people make better decisions. So I'm so glad to have you here. I'm so glad to have this conversation. We'll have the presentation and a little bit of Q&A. Also, there's all the issues around the seafarers themselves, their safety, their welfare, abandonment issues, skill issues. So we're having a wild ride. For those of you in the audience, thank you for attending. Just to let you know that we really encourage you to submit questions in writing. Your cameras and microphones will not work, but please send those in. There is a handout section, so the copy of the slides and the copy of the report are available for you to download at any time during the webinar. There are nearly 500 of you out there now, so please keep your questions succinct so we can get through as many as possible. The recording will be available, and at the end, if you don't mind doing a little 2-minute survey, that would help us out as well. So, Rahul, I'm just going to hand over to you. Pause. Right. So while I'm handing over the con, Captain Rahul is he's the head of marine risk consulting at Allianz. He's has sailed as captain, so he's a master mariner, captain. He's worked as a surveyor. He's worked as a casualty investigator. He's been with Allianz for over 10 years in this role. If you want to learn any more about him, you can look on LinkedIn. But other than that, Captain Khanna, Associate Fellow of the Nautical Institute, over to you, sir.
Thank you, David. Pleasure to be here. I think this is becoming a bit of a ritual. I think 4th, 5th year that I've been here talking about the report, talking about risk and safety in shipping, and it's always a pleasure to be talking about such an important topic in our industry. Welcome to everyone, all of you from wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you. It's great to have all of you listen in, tune in. What we are going to talk about today is safety in shipping, some of the statistics that Allianz produced over the years. We've been doing this for 14 years. Every year the report comes in and we compare the safety statistics, particularly in terms of total losses and shipping incidents overall, year on year, and we look at the trends. And then we also look at what's happening in the industry from a perspective of what has happened in the past and where we see risks coming in from the future. Of course, it's a vast area. There's so many topics to cover, so excuse me if I don't cover everything, but we'll try to cover as much as possible. But here's a a little snoop on what the contents are going to be. Firstly, the statistics. Then we go into war and geopolitical risks. We'll then look at hull and cargo risk. We'll look at a little bit on the claims outlook, and we'll leave some time for Q&A in the end. Before I start, let me talk a little bit about what is this report and how do we look at the statistics that we have. So it's a publication that we have been doing since 2012, so it's in its 14th year. Annual analysis of total losses and incidents in shipping, as I just said. The report also looked at key industry trends and insights, and also at emerging risks that the shipping industry is facing. So we'll go into a little bit of detail, but you can download the report from our website at commercial.allianz.com. And of course, it is also available in various other formats. So let's dive into the statistics first. So as I said, we looked at total casualties, which includes total losses in shipping. And just to clarify what a total loss is, if a vessel which gets into a casualty or has an accident or incident and is unable to sail again, and it is left for discarding, scrapping, dismantling, then it is termed as total loss, or in insurance terms, sometimes constructive total loss as well. So we look at total losses, but more importantly, we look at overall number of recorded incidents and casualties across the shipping industry. So and this report works, this data in this section of the report is from the calendar year 2025. So 1st of January 25 till 31st of December 2025. And these are statistics for vessels over 100 gross tons only. We don't consider smaller vessels because it's very difficult to get the data on it. So if you look at the slides in front of you, you will see the total number of casualties that we've had in 2025 is 2,818, which compares positively to what was in 2024, where we had 535 additional casualties. So we were something like 3,300 number last year, but 2025 has shown a substantial improvement in total number of recorded incident and casualties in the shipping industry, and this is worldwide. So where are these casualties coming from? You can see the top region where we received casualty notifications from is East Mediterranean and Black Sea, where we had 622 incidents. This is, again, a year-on-year change of -68, so 68 less incidents recorded this year. This year means 2025. The second most region which recorded casualties was British Isles, North Sea, the English Channel, and Bay of Biscay region, with 619 casualties, followed by South China, Indochina, Indonesia, Philippines with 273, Great Lakes 154, and the rest. On the right side, you see the 10-year statistics of the same number of casualties that we have. So in the last decade, the British Isles, North Sea, English Channel has topped the number of casualties that we have recorded at 5,953, followed by East Mediterranean and Black Sea region, and then further followed by South China, Indochina, and Philippines. Now, something to be said about these statistics. Now, these are taken from governments who are reporting, or coastal states that are reporting incidents and casualties that happen. And there is obviously discrepancies, there is always inaccuracies in reporting these incidents. Some states, some regions report a lot more diligently, they report a lot more incidents, but some others may not. So we have to take these numbers with a pinch of salt always. However, if you look at these numbers over a longer period of time, I think they give us still quite a reasonable view of the shipping industry and how the casualties and incidents have progressed over a period of time. In general, the trends for shipping incidents has been more or less around the 3,000 mark in the last decade or so. But we have seen a reduction in at least last year, which is good news. If we now look at what has been causing these shipping incidents, by far the biggest cause for these incidents is machinery damage and machinery failures. As you can see, a large percentage of these incidents are caused by machinery damage, and 1,500 plus incidents of machinery damage and failure. We had 260 collisions. We had 218 fire incidents and wrecked and stranded vessels at 202. Contacts with fixed objects like harbor walls, cranes, jetties, port terminals, etc. at 155, and there's a miscellaneous category of 478. So overall, this is the composition of how we've seen the incidents and what are the main categories. If we look at now the total losses, now again, casualties, as I said, 2,800 plus casualties in a year, and some of them are total losses, which I explained earlier. And we track total losses again over the decade. As you can see in this chart, in 2025, we had 43 total losses. And the more important is the trend of these total losses. As we've seen from 10 years ago, we've seen a substantial reduction in total losses year after year. There was a spike in 2024, and there was some adjustment in numbers as well in 2024, which caused the spike. But in general, if you see, the shipping industry has done a pretty reasonably good job in reducing the number of total losses that the vessels have seen. Now, we do focus on this number because this is more absolute number. It is not easy to not report total losses. So this is more accurate. Hence, we use this number as a better reflection of total losses. So better reflection of safety statistics in the industry, so to say. So more than 900 total losses reported over the last decade. And between 2016 and 2020, there were 555, which means an average of 111 per year. And this number declined to 350 in the next 5 years, between 21 and 25. And that's an average of 70. So that means a 37% decline in comparing the 2 5-year period from 2016 to 2025. So that's definitely good news. And I think we all look around, we have, as an industry, made a lot of progress in terms of technology, in terms of regulation, in terms of providing training over the years. But then 43 total losses are still 43 too many. So as an industry, we should be focusing on getting this number to as close to zero as possible. It probably will never be zero because there are so many external factors that contribute to these losses. But at least the aim of all of us in the industry, especially you guys, seafarers out there, is to bring this number down as much as possible, because unfortunately there are lives lost as well when these casualties or incidents happen. This is a bit of a summary of where you see the total losses coming from. The balloon size tells you the number of total losses that have come from which part of the world. So as you can see, 255 total losses coming from South China, Indochina region in the last 10 years. That has been followed by the East Mediterranean Sea. And then you will see a breakdown of that in this slide, where the total losses are coming from, what types of vessels have been involved in total losses. You will see the cargo vessels are topping the list for almost all the last 10 years. The cargo vessel is a slightly bigger category, of course. However, there's differentiation between bulk carriers, fisheries, passenger vessels, tugboats, chemical product tankers, ro-ro vessels, and after you take out all the other categories, the general cargo vessels, including the reefers, would be part of the cargo vessels category, which is on top, which tells us something about this. We know that when we are on oil tankers, on LPG carriers, chemical tankers, some of the other specialized vessels, there are a lot more regulations. There are a lot more training requirements. And the cargo vessel segment, the general cargo vessel segment, somehow gets a little bit left behind in my view. And that also brings in a little bit of complacency from seafarers, from owners and managers and everybody else in this category. But the numbers clearly show that the total number of losses from cargo vessels tops the list for the last 10 years. So here's an area for us to look into in the future. That's all about the statistics and the numbers. But as David said in his opening statement, we are in a very, very interesting, strange, and unprecedented situation in the shipping industry. We have currently 3 different conflicts ongoing in the world, which are affecting seafarers, which are affecting shipping. And we've also had a resurgence of piracy now. So you're looking at the war, obviously, in the Persian Gulf between Iran and the United States. We are looking at the Red Sea crisis, where Houthis have again joined in after a break of a year, but they were active a few years ago. But another worrying development has been the incidents that are now picking up between in the Black Sea region, where Russia and Ukraine are now actively targeting ships and seafarers, unfortunately. So these three fronts are where shipping is currently fighting for their survival. Seafarers and vessels have been fighting for their survivals. And this has been really unprecedented. I don't think in history, as far as I can remember, there has ever been this case. And now with the resurgence of piracy, that means we as seafarers and shipping industry are facing a clearly unprecedented situation. So you can see, we'll start with the obvious one, the Persian Gulf and Straits of Hormuz crisis. We've seen the crisis in the Hormuz going on for almost 6 months now. We used to have roughly 140 odd transits from Straits of Hormuz pre-March, pre this conflict, and this dropped down to something like 2 to 4 vessels every day at the peak of the crisis. Now, it has ebbed and flowed over the last 6 months when there has been apparent peace deals, when there have been apparent discussions or ceasefires, which in the end didn't last too long. The end result is we are back to a situation where there are 5 to 7 to 10 vessels transiting the Straits of Hormuz. Now, these are recorded incidents. These are recorded crossings of Straits of Hormuz. However, we also understand that a lot of the vessels are doing these transit in the night with the AIs switched off, with even the radar switched off sometimes to avoid detection, because some of the drones and missile attacks have been able to pick up the radar activity. And they are apparently under the protection of United States Armed Forces. However, the northern route is under the active protection of the Iranian state. The central route, which we all have been using for years, I have been using for years, where the traffic separation scheme is still considered to be mined and unusable. However, there have been some reports that there's active deep mining operations going on. But right now, most of the vessels are either transiting the southern route very close to the Omani coast, which used to be the inshore zone previously, or the northern route closer to the coastal line of Iran under their protection. So these are the two routes that are happening at the moment. So while the report statistics give you statistics from 1st of January 25 till 31st December 25, the Strait of Hormuz and these conflict numbers we have updated till January 2020, till June 2026. And at that time, we did an analysis to figure out how many vessels were sort of stuck inside the Persian Gulf, and the number stood around 1,150, with something like 20,000 seafarers trapped on these vessels within the Persian Gulf. At that time, we had 17 seafarers who lost their life, but this number is not higher now, because in the last few days as well, in the last month or so, we've had further attacks, renewed attacks on vessels, and the number of vessels that have been hit is crossing 70 vessels now, with either missiles or boats or projectiles or drones. And this is clearly a situation where there's a big impact on not just shipping itself, but it's also a big impact on, firstly, on seafarers and their safety, but also on freight markets, also on supply chains, also on commodity markets, and of course the oil and gas market, of course. And this has manifested itself in so many different ways, with the change in prices, the spiraling oil price, and subsequent knock-on effect on goods and services and across the world, but also on freight rates of vessels, where VLCCs, for example, are now being chartered on a daily rates of as close to $500,000 a day, which is rarely ever seen and heard in history. But the impact still remains, and my concerns clearly goes into towards the seafarers who have been a collateral damage in this whole incident. Now, this brings us to an interesting point of maritime choke points, and we have been discussing this for many years. In our report, we have discussed maritime choke points previously. A few years ago, some of you will remember the Ever Given blocked the Suez Canal, and that was probably one of the first major events that showed the world how maritime choke points can impact global trade. Now, Suez Canal carries something like $9 to $10 billion worth of trade every day, and for 6 days, the Suez Canal was blocked. There were hundreds of vessels on either side. Now that got the world's attention towards maritime choke points. And we have many choke points across the world. Straits of Hormuz, of course, being the one, but you have Suez Canal, you have Dover Straits, you have Turkish Straits, you have Gibraltar, you have Panama Canal, you have Taiwan and Straits of Malacca, Singapore Straits, Bab el Mandab into the Red Sea. So some of these are listed in some of the statistics you can go through. I won't go through all of them. But the interesting part about Straits of Hormuz is that is the only one which doesn't have an alternative. So any vessels inside the Persian Gulf have to use Straits of Hormuz to get out or get in, while most of the other choke points will have alternative routes. As we have seen during the Red Sea crisis the last few years, a lot of the ship owners decided to not pass through Suez Canal and the Red Sea, and they took the longer route from Cape via Cape of Good Hope, which added something like 15 odd days and almost $1 million in additional cost. But today we have the issue with Straits of Hormuz where we cannot transit that. Now, this has a major impact in supply chain and logistics across the world as well. We have a lot of our cargo clients who are worried and concerned about how we're going to address this. But there is this whole thing talk about having resilience in your shipping and supply chain strategies across the world. What ship owners are going through is a whole different story. Some of them are actually making money out of this. The rates have gone up for a lot of the vessels which are not unavailable, or the overall times taken for goods to reach, or as we call the ton mile of the vessels, had increased substantially across the world, which has pushed the rates up. However, I think the situation also demands a careful consideration from the perspective of seafarers, from the goods, and rising inflation across the globe. We discussed a little bit about Straits of Hormuz, of course. The flow of oil and gas through Persian Gulf is obviously affected. We were looking at 20 million barrels a day. We are now down to probably just a few million barrels a day. The East-West pipeline, as you can see on the dotted line across the Saudi Arabian landscape, is been pumping around 7 million barrels of oil towards the Red Sea, and the oil has been now picked up by VLCCs in the northern Red Sea area of Yanbu, taken across the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean, and then coming back all the way to the south via the Cape of Good Hope and going east towards Japan, Korea, and other places. So it has really upended the supply chain and the traditional routes that we have taken. You also see a yellow line across at the north part of the Red Sea, which is the pipeline going from the Red Sea into the Mediterranean, which is now also being used to pump out oil from the Red Sea towards the Mediterranean, and then the vessels can take oil from the Mediterranean region as well. However, all this still means we still have a substantial shortfall of oil able to get out. But it's not just about oil. We also have chemicals, we also have fertilizers, we also have other bulk commodities which are being produced, and an overall knock-on effect of those vessels on the global economy. I already talked about this a little bit. You can see the route that was taken by vessels if you're not going to use the Red Sea. This slide we prepared last year. However, and this clearly shows the route from east to west going via the Cape of Good Hope. But now, as I was explaining, this is also now the other way around. And this is where the additional time and money is being spent by ship owners. What we, continuing on the choppy waters ahead slide, where we're still talking about the global choke points. And you can see we created a bit of a scorecard for global choke points in terms of where the risk is highest and what type of risk we are talking about. So you can see like Panama Canal has a very high category of risk, simply because it also takes into consideration political risk, climate risk, or redundancy risks. And then Suez Canal, of course, you can see in red. Now, interestingly, the Straits of Hormuz here has only two risks, which is marked red: redundancy risk and political risk. However, you can all feel the effects of what Straits of Hormuz has done across the globe. So while these are risks associated with particular choke points across the world, it still remains that any one of them can, at any given point, have a massive impact on global supply chains. I mentioned the word resilience. Now, a lot of the clients that we speak to across the globe are talking to us about having an alternative plans for supply chains. A lot of manufacturers across the world who ship cargo, essential goods, commodities, bulk, finished products, electronics, food, and everything else are today worried about the resilience of their supply chains. They are having to find alternative routes. They're having to find how, if the choke points come under further attacks, and for that matter, other choke points come under attack, because now it has set a dangerous precedent across the world, how are they going to maintain their supply chains? How are they going to get the stuff? And manufacturing carries on, and the manufactured goods are able to reach their destinations as well. So those calculations are going on across, and it has been driving trade flow, impacting trade flows for now a good 6 months to a year. In fact, one of the first impacts we saw was during COVID times, when we saw what is the impact of trade routes on global economy. And we have seen this now again impacted from the Straits of Hormuz closure. But this is becoming such a big watchword across the globe, also with ship owners, but not only with ship owners, also with cargo owners, industries in general. Now, a very interesting shift that we saw is that supply chains were all about just-in-time deliveries over the years. What that meant was that all the factories, all the manufacturing hubs got the raw materials, and vice versa on the finished goods as well. The efficiency was the key word. Everybody wanted to be efficient, to reduce cost of storage, to reduce cost of transit times, and what that meant was that goods could come in just in time, when as needed, and shipped across to reduce those costs. Now, over the years, last few years, what we have seen, what has happened with the choke points and the disruption, it has changed the mantra from just in time to just in case. What that means is essentially resilience again, that businesses now want alternatives so that they are assured of deliveries of their goods, and they should have a plan just in case there are things that go wrong, as we've already seen. One of the interesting things that has also come up, we have highlighted this in our report as the interest in Arctic shipping. And some of you will know, I don't know how many of you ever sailed in the Arctic, but it requires obviously special skills from seafarer. It requires ice-class vessels. A lot of the vessels now are able to transit the Arctic using the Northern Sea route on the Northwest Passage because of the melting polar ice caps. The amount of ice cap that have reduced over the years is a substantial and concerning number. We have seen reports coming in from different research industries that the route is open for much longer period of time in the summer, and that has meant that more and more vessels have been transiting the ice caps. Now, this is of course one of the aftermaths of the climate change impact that we have seen across the world. But what's happening with the geopolitical situation has meant that this has become strategically important as well now. It's been in the news in the last few years that the Chinese vessels have now started a liner service, as they call it, the Arctic Silk route. There are some container vessels that have been using this vessel now, using the Northern Sea route more and more. There are other countries who are testing this route out, but what is driving the strategic importance of this route is that from, for example, the hubs of the East in China, Korea, and Japan, you can come to the European consumption hubs via the Northern Sea route in as much as 40 to 50% less time cost, but more importantly, avoiding all the choke points and the geopolitical conflicts that we have seen across the world. So to have an alternative where you avoid all the regions of Red Sea, you avoid the Persian Gulf, you avoid some of the other regions as well, that means that this route is becoming strategically more and more important. And hence there has been more political statements, more political interest coming into this region. But as we all know, at least from a seafarer's perspective, this is not an easy area. This is harsh environment. Any incident or casualty happening in the Arctic could mean a multiple an exponential impact on not just the environment, but in providing support to the vessels that are out there. So from our perspective, it is something that is happening because of economics, because of strategic importance. However, it is not free of risk, and it might become one of the bigger risks in the future as this window starts widening or getting longer and longer when the vessels can pass through the ice. There have been activity in construction. More and more ice class vessels have been on order. But if you can imagine a major incident with an oil tanker, with an oil spill happening in this region, it will be catastrophic for not just the environment, but the whole region itself. Russia has already been investing lots of money in port infrastructure, in providing icebreakers, and also other support and services in the region, which is a concern for some of the countries in the West because of the strategic importance. So this is becoming another area where there's a lot of geopolitical interest, and hopefully it does not become a conflict zone in the future. Let's quickly touch on some of the hull and cargo risks. Geopolitics across the globe, what we have seen, has also extended the life of vessels in some shape or form because of the freight rates have gone up, because of the vessels that are not available, because of the longer routes and longer time it's taking for vessels to ship the cargoes from point A to point B. The service times for vessel is becoming longer. So the average age of vessels in the global fleet is now up to 23 years. This was 20 years before the COVID-19 pandemic that we saw. So the average age of the vessels which are sailing is going up. We have 24% of the global container fleet consists of vessels over 20 years old, which was 16% in 2020. Again, this category also has grown in age, and around 50% of all safety incidents are accounted for by vessels over 20 years of age. Now, we all know that the older machinery or older steel equipment on board the vessel does cause or require a lot more maintenance. Now, of course, it's not to say all older vessels are more riskier. A lot of them are run efficiently, safely by the crew who are trained, and the owners and managers are operating them with great caution. However, in general, the statistics are clearly saying that there will be more number of events and incidents on older vessels, and this is another worry that we are seeing. We also seeing the new building demand, again, a shift. We are, this slide in front of you shows where the new building demand is coming from, which types of vessels are being on order. You can see 33% are today, 33% of the order books and investment is coming into LNG and LPG vessels, followed by 21% in tankers, and then 19% in container vessels. And of course, you can see the delivery of new build vessels as well, in which region, and by the color of the bar graphs on the right. I won't go too much into detail, but these are, as I said, available to download for you just to see how the shift is happening now because of all the geopolitical trends that we are seeing into what kind of vessels are being on order and what kind of deliveries we can see coming in and from which region. We've addressed the topic of misdeclared cargo for a very long time. I think the first time we spoke about this was almost 10 years ago, and this has been a problem in the industry for many years ago. Now, why are we talking this about misdeclared cargo again? It is because over the years we have repeatedly seen misdeclared cargo becomes a leading contributor to fire on board vessels, particularly the container vessel. And some of these incidents of fire caused by misdeclared cargo has led to losses upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars. Some very high-profile losses happen because of this. Now, this problem is simply because some of the shippers, which are shipping goods in containers all across the world, are not declaring the cargo as it should be, as per the IMDG code, as per the guidelines, as per hazmat codes across the world, simply because it costs a lot more to ship a cargo if it is classed as hazardous cargo. But what it does for the crews and on board the ships is that they are unaware that certain containers, which should be placed in protective location because it's a hazmat cargo, is is now placed randomly, considering that there's no hazardous cargo in this. And this has led to many incidents over the past. And we have seen quite a few issues, especially now with lithium-ion batteries being carried inside these containers, which are damaged, which are reused or recycled batteries, which have a lot higher risk of catching fire. And these are now declared as computer parts. These are declared as non-hazardous goods, and this is causing a bigger issue in itself. Lithium-ion batteries have been a bigger issue in the industries in general anyway in the last few years. We have been highlighting this because of the fires on the ro-ro vessels that we have seen in the past, and this has led to a further increase in the quantum of losses. So what claims which used to be back in the day in the 100 to 10 to 50 million regions are now going above 100 million regions, because some of these lithium-ion battery fires are very hard to contain, and despite the efforts, it is becoming very difficult. That once the fire takes hold, with EVs or electric vehicles on board, it is almost impossible to extinguish the fire, and it invariably is ending up in total loss of the vessel. What we also seen, some of the technology enhancements which have now come in to address this particular problem. We have the World Shipping Council together with National Cargo Bureau in the US using an AI-based tool to screen millions of shipments for identifying such misdeclared cargo, and they have been reasonably successful. And this is an initiative that they have put in place, which is hopefully it's already yielded some good results and detected and identified quite a few of misdeclared goods, and managed to stop those shipments. But hopefully in the future, similar initiatives will provide a lot more effect and trying to find out the misdeclared cargo, which eventually leads to much bigger losses. On the cargo side, we've also had quite a few issues with organized crimes now because of the technology, because advancement in AI. We have seen a lot of fictitious cargo pickups from warehouses, from trucking, from ports as well, where the documentation is so easy to forge and duplicate because of what AI can do. There has been a big uptick in cargo theft and organized cargo crimes across the globe. United States itself has seen a lot of increase in goods, especially electronics, food and groceries type of goods, cigarettes, alcohol, and also high-end goods, which have been under a sustained attack, not just in the US, but also in Europe. And we have seen quite a substantial increase in these thefts. Now, again, technology is coming to help to address this issue, but it still forms a large percentage of the claims that we see. We also looked at how the claims are manifesting itself because of the conflict in the Persian Gulf. The number of 46 merchant vessels, as I said, is till June of this year. Today, that number stands close to 70 or even more, as we are seeing almost daily attacks now on vessels. So this number, 70 plus vessels being attacked in the region. So many seafarers live. I think it's upwards of 20 now, which is really a concerning issue for us in the industry, and it is becoming a serious deterrent to seafarers thinking how do they maintain their lives, how their earnings, and whether they should go out to sea or not. Now, from a claims perspective, this is causing, of course, the direct property loss that we see. The vessels that have been total loss because of the missile strikes and drone strikes are big claims that we are seeing. But also we are seeing claims coming in from the cargo damage that has happened, even if the vessel has not been a total loss, but the cargo has been damaged. There are claims now coming in from other types of delays and cargo getting spoiled because of delays. So those claims will probably come up as well as the vessels keep getting stuck and unable to either discharge their cargoes in time or have had massive delays and had impact on cargo claims. So this has also been an uptick in the claims, and we probably see the cargo claims developing over the next few months and the rest of the year as well. One of the other claims highlight that we have is that the claims have been, the number of incidents, as I was saying earlier, have reduced. Yes, and we can say on a wider perspective that the safety records has improved to some extent. But the claims are now becoming much more larger. They are much more complex and a lot harder to predict. And that's what an insurance company's primary objective is, to somehow predict the claims, and that's how you would charge the premiums based on prediction of the claims. But one of the issues that we see is the size of the vessels. Over the years, we have seen something like 1,500% increase in the size of container ships. When I was sailing about in the late 90s, early 2000s, a 5,000 TEU container vessel was a huge vessel. But we are now talking about something like 25,000 TEU container vessels, 400 plus meters. And the size of the vessels, the number of containers being carried as much as 25,000, the casualty management on such vessels is becoming very, very complex. These environmental regulations across the world where this casualty happens, and the coastal states putting in a lot more requirements now, are making the dealing of these casualties a lot more complex and a lot more costly. We have seen, as an example, the Costa Concordia loss a few years ago in Italy, where the passenger vessel went aground and then eventually was a total loss. That claim going up to as much as $2 billion. We had the claim where one of the container vessels, Dali, struck the Baltimore Bridge and collapsed the whole bridge. That claim values are also running in multiple of billions of dollars now. The complexity of such claims, the complexity of a major fire on one of the very large container vessels is something that is really concerning. While the number of claims may have reduced, or the number of incidents may have reduced, the cost of these claims has gone up significantly. We are talking billions now, not just millions anyway for the claims. Now, we've also seen general average claims on the rise as well because of the involvements of cargo, and because of the larger number of cargoes. And these become much more complex when you have so many different parties involved as the cargo owners. We've also seen claims coming in from the GNSS disruption. The jamming and spoofing incidents have really spiraled out of control in the Persian Gulf, in the Black Sea between the Russia and Ukraine war as well. This has been ongoing for some time. And we have been seeing this as a big concern. It has been reported in some cases as much as 1,000 incidents of jamming and spoofing, which is causing issues to the navigation. I know some of you seafarers out there are still well versed in navigation, the older ways of navigation, but I think the newer breed of seafarers and navigators today aren't that well versed. And if you suddenly lose your GPS signals, a lot of the connected integrated bridge systems are now dependent on this, although we still have backups here and there. But in a critical situation where you have a very small amount of time to react to a particular risk or a situation, for example, in a narrow channel, these disruptions can be very, very catastrophic. Now, I think this is the last slide for the day. There, as I said, there are plenty of things, but decarbonization again is something that we have been dealing with as an industry for the last decade. Actively, there's been so much work that we did as an industry. IMO has been doing so much of work, but last year, as some of you would remember, the net zero, the IMO's net zero framework was put into the test, and unfortunately did not pass or was withdrawn because of the threats from United States and some of the other countries to not allow a net zero framework to be in place. Now, ship owners, investors, others have invested billions of dollars in addressing this and to make sure the decarbonization targets that are still set by IMO are met in the next 10, 20 to 30 years. But the net zero framework withdrawal and derailment has really casted some shadows on the future. Now, imagine ship owners who have spent hundreds of millions of dollars in manufacturing or building vessels which are now running on methanol, which have the sails on them, electronic sails, and then all other kinds of alternative fuels that have been impacted, or any other means where investments have been made to reduce the environmental impact of vessels, to reduce the carbon emissions from the vessels. If the whole framework is not there anymore, they would certainly feel let down, and it discourages how we go forward. Hopefully, this is just a delay and not a derailment complete in this, and we can come back to getting to our decarbonization goals in the next few years. And some of the encouraging things are that we have the EU ETS scheme also now back on track. It has been impacted, but there are, of course, commitments required from ship owners, from everybody in the shipping industry. So this becomes certainly, and this is happening now out on the together with all the geopolitical conflicts that we are going through in the industry. So I think in the end, I would say overall, we've had so much going on in this industry in the last couple of years. This has been clearly unprecedented and really interesting times for us to be living in the shipping industry. Thank you very much. Back to you, David. I hope, thank you for stepping in during my moment of disability.
No, and Rahul, I thank you so much for joining us, even though you are slightly under the weather. We do appreciate it. Right. So, Captain Khanna, just to be clear about the statistics, most of the statistics in the report are from 2025, although the report was published in June, so you were able to include some references to Hormuz and some of the other choke points, correct?
That is absolutely correct. The safety statistics are calendar year 2025, which we compare year after year. But some of the other statistics on how many vessels stuck in the Hormuz and others and attacks are till 2026 June.
Right, so you're probably looking at a pretty busy year of statistics for next year.
Yes, it's very difficult to predict how it's going to be, but we've already seen quite a few, additional attacks, additional incidents, and total losses that we have seen. So I'm sure we'll have another interesting year next year when we talk about this.
So in the report, you highlight a new equilibrium in shipping. Shipping, from the time of tall ships and probably before that, has always been very agile and tried to be as resilient as possible. Presumably, given that we transport 90% of the world's trades, roughly, is shipping still viable with all these new risks? What's going to be the impact of the commercial impact of all these risks?
I'm just thinking how to answer this. I think, shipping has been around forever, as far as we can concern. It's one of the oldest professions around, and I think we have seen so much as an industry. I don't think shipping is going to go anywhere. Although, how do we deal with this will certainly shape the next decade of shipping. How do we deal with these challenges that we are in? Because the new equilibrium, when we talk about this, the whole geopolitical situation across the world has changed fundamentally the nature of shipping. The trade routes have shifted across the globe. The types of vessels that will be needed to move these goods now, because the requirements, the demands across the world are changing very, very rapidly. They are adjusting and realigning to what's going on in the world. And that would mean the industry will have to adapt very quickly. They are already adapting, not just with the trade routes, but the types of vessels. And then things like decarbonization, things like alternative fuels that are coming in, things like technology that is changing the way. So I think there is no reason to think shipping will not be viable. The only question is, how well do we adapt to this changing environment around us? And especially this change has accelerated in the last few years for all the things that we've just spoken about. And I think it will be a test and a challenge for our industry to keep up with these challenges and come up with a solution for each and every one of them.
Mm. No, thanks for that, Rahul. We've got a question came in from Roger, and let me just read it right. This is a timely perspective on how geopolitical disruption, aging fleets, and rising operational costs are reshaping the maritime risks. I'm particularly interested in how the industry can strengthen resilience while maintaining the long-term safety improvement, and what are the key competencies should experienced seafarers develop when transforming into the future. So, and I don't think it's just the key competencies of the seafarers themselves. I think it's the ship management, ship owning, regulation, you know, the whole supply chain. Do we have mechanisms in the industry for making sure that people are skilled to be agile and resilient?
I think that's a very interesting question. Overarching, of course, we do. I think there is a lot of work that has been done in the last decade or two on seafarers upskilling, but as we were just discussing, there have been some fundamental shifts in the last few years, which will require a readjustment. The way decarbonization goes in the next 5 years will set the trend on what kind of vessels we are going to see. But in any case, the way technology has changed in the last few years with the advent of AI, although AI is not that actively employed on board vessels as much as it is now, but this is clearly a technology that will change shipping. We, as an industry, have invested, but it cannot be like we have made the investment and let's see what happens. We have to continuously keep changing and reassessing these investments on training, on design of vessels, on design of ports, on investments coming in from the industry, on regulatory environment, service industry. All of these have to keep changing, keep adapting to the continuous pressure and challenges that we are receiving. And I think if we become static in any of this, that would be a big blow to the industry because the change is so much rapid and constant.
Yeah, and thanks, Rahul. I'm going to give a very shameless plug for the Nautical Institute here, because this is actually our role as a professional body to help people with continuous professional development. So yeah, this is what we do, and we're trying our best to keep up with things. Interesting, I'll just make another bit of a plug. We have a STEER project, which is something in the handout section that looks at the effective technology on seafarers. And one of the things that we're looking at is AI. And if people want to do a survey on that, that would be very advantageous to us. Thank you. A question's come in from Ali. As container ships continue to increase in size, are salvage and emergency response capabilities worldwide keeping pace, or are mega ships becoming too large to actually rescue effectively?
Great question. I think we've addressed this question a couple of times in the last few years. We probably still are concerned that the increasing size of the vessels has the support industry, the service industry, the salvage industry has probably not kept the pace with the increasing size of vessels in container shipping over the years. We see that today, if we have a major incident on one of these ultra large container vessels, you probably have to wait days on to get the right kinds of tugs and salvage assistance coming in from different parts of the world. We saw that in the Suez Canal blockage as well, because yes, it took time to get this up. And fortunately, we haven't seen any such incident again. However, we definitely feel that there's more to be done in this field. A major vessel getting involved in a casualty, the salvage efforts required for some of these vessels is enormous. The logistics of dealing with some of these casualties are huge, and I think any single port will be really hard pressed to deal with such a casualty. And now we're talking about Arctic. If a larger container vessel has a casualty in the Arctic region, for example, well, we are really in for a big problem, because the salvage equipment out there is definitely not there. It needs a lot more support.
Sure. And one of the other challenges in the Arctic that has been discussed recently is passenger ships going up, because, of course, as the ice melts, new areas open that may not have been surveyed, the hydrographic surveys. And, if something happens to a passenger ship with thousands of people on board, the logistics of providing search and rescue for that would be enormous as well.
Absolutely.
Right. You talked very eloquently and passionately about safeguarding seafarers. I know you're not in the operational side of things, but have we as an industry, are we able to manage some of the risks to safeguard the seafarers, in your opinion?
I think an honest answer, in the last few years, we have seen a lot of things that that make me feel that we as an industry definitely need to do more towards our seafarers. In this conflict, we have seen seafarers as collateral damage, which at any given point for me is not acceptable. We saw seafarers being mistreated and left by the wayside during the COVID crisis as well. Consider the fact that 90% of the global trade is carried by these seafarers, by hardworking seafarers all across the globe. And over the years, we as an industry, while we have done a lot of things going towards, we again have not been able to keep pace with the changing landscape, especially with these conflicts now ongoing. A lot of reports of seafarers wanting to get off the vessels, not going through the conflict zone, have not been allowed to get off the vessels. A lot of seafarers have been commercially forced to go on vessels and sail, because if you don't go, somebody else will go, sort of situations given by by the owners and managers. And with the freight rates going up as much as $500,000 for a VLCC per day, there is a picture which I certainly don't enjoy to look at. We as an industry have to do definitely a lot more, especially in the current situation for our seafarers. I know IMO is working towards another initiative to the discussions around how to address this, but I think there's a lot of scope.
Yeah, and one of the most heart-wrenching comments that we got, questions coming in that we really can't answer, is from a deck cadet saying, is it safe to go to sea or should I stay at home? So we can't really answer that, but it just shows that this will have an impact on future recruitment and retention in the maritime industry. And I'll just remind everybody that, ship owners, managers, the good ones, do look out for the physical safety and the welfare, but there are organizations that specifically have welfare support for seafarers, things like the Sailor Society, ISWAN, the Missions to Seafarers. There are others. So, if you do feel that you're under that kind of strain, please feel free to reach out to these organizations. So, Rahul, thank you so much. We are out of time, so I'm just going to wrap up a little bit here. So just to remind everybody that the slides and the report are available on the handout section. You've got a minute left to download them if you want them. Otherwise, the report can be found on the Allianz website. The Nautical Institute is an international, worldwide organization. We have branches around the world. So please feel free to get involved with those local communities for your professional development. And we look forward to seeing you all again. So, Rahul, thank you so much again for your wisdom and for contributing to the Nautical Institute.
Thank you, David. Thanks for the opportunity. Always a pleasure.
And thanks to everybody in the audience for all your questions. Bye now.
Bye-bye.